Hi guys, my name is Leilani and I'm a clinical nutritionist and I'm a chef, and I'm here today to teach you how to make the meals you love nutrient dense and actually good for your gut, your brain and your body. So there's a bit of nutrition through the cooking class and it's evidence-based, but I've simplified the science and I've made it really practical for the everyday person. So today we're going to be focusing on thyroid health as well as a bit of gut health. And there'll be kind of two stages to this. We'll do the broth and then we'll put it together to make the soup. But just to begin with, I want to talk about thyroid health and some of the symptoms that you might see or experience that could indicate that you might have an issue with your thyroid, and you can go and get some testing for that. And this is how to get those nutrients into your diet every day or regularly, so that you may not have to supplement or anything like that. So basically the symptoms is the top kind of clinical symptoms that you might see. One of them is unexplained weight gain and the inability to lose weight even though you're trying. So it's like those stubborn kilos that just won't shift. That can be very much a hormonal thing. Dry hair, thinning hair, dry skin, sensitivity to hot or cold. So if you sort of feel really cold and everyone else is fine, or feel really hot, sleep disturbances, ongoing fatigue, and chronic low iron. So if you experience kind of any or all of those, then I really recommend go to your GP, get some of these tests that I'll talk about, and test the nutrients as well that I'll go into, because there are a few of the top nutrients that actually are super important for your thyroid health. And then I've chosen the foods that have very high levels of those nutrients, and that's why we're making a sort of a thyroid boosting soup today. And it's delicious. It's actually a sort of slight spin-off pho, or it's spelled P-H-O, so people say pho a lot. It's Vietnamese beef bone broth soup, but it's a little bit tweaked to include those ingredients, as I was saying. So to actually make thyroid hormone, the nutrients that are essential to that, one is iodine. Okay, so you need to make sure you get iodine in your diet. That's why we've got a few things like iodized salt. I've got some seaweed coming later. Iron is a really, really important one, actually. Iron helps, actually, I won't go into the detail too much, but it helps with the conversion of iodide to iodine. So you do need it, and you also need tyrosine. So they're the three main ones in the first couple of steps. And then moving on to the next step are selenium and zinc are needed for the conversion of T4 to T3, which are really important thyroid hormones. And also vitamin A and vitamin D are needed to transport those hormones to the part of the body that is needed. So I won't go into too much detail. I think that's more than enough for you, but these are the main ones. There's one other one that is inositol, and that's more, the studies have shown inositol can really help regenerate the thyroid. It can help lower TSH levels and also antibodies. So this soup is specifically for the inclusion of all of those nutrients. And then in terms of testing, you can get your thyroid tested from your doctor. I do recommend like a more full panel, not just TSH, because testing TSH is pretty much like testing one of the four wheels in your car to see if they're at full capacity. So TSH is some indicator, but it's not very thorough. And the other one is iron. You want to check your iron studies, and then some of the other nutrients that I mentioned, like the zinc and the iodine. So and then a lot of it you can get in your diet if you're very conscious of what foods have those nutrients. So let's get started. We're going to basically start with the broth. And This is amazing. There's sort of no shortcut to this, but it's 5 minutes of prep, and it's kind of just a lot of waiting and hanging around. But you can throw it into a slow cooker and have it do its thing over the day. So I'm just going to use a pot today, but you can do all of this in a slow cooker. Now, the bone broth, I've gone to the butcher, and you can see I've just got all these like soup bones. These are kind of neck and knuckles. You can get any bone, you can get marrow. There's not a lot of meat on these bones, so I'm actually going to add some chuck just to bring the richness of the meat and more iron into the soup. You don't have to, or you could even just get a sirloin and thinly slice it and throw it at the end. But essentially with the bones and you're just adding water and a few other things, we're going to slow cook this for, these are quite big bones, so a few hours, at least 3 hours, and it's going to extract the nutrients from that and bring them into the broth itself. And so our first step here, when you've got your bones, this is, by the way, this is a really simplified version. So if you want to make a bone broth, you can actually roast the bones first. That intensifies the flavor. You can heat it up. If you want to clear a broth, put the water in there, heat it up, rinse it out, and then put fresh water in there. But just for the sake of, I haven't got time to do that, and I really don't want to do that. I just want the nutrients in it. I'm just going to do it the shortcut way. So the first step is we're going to fill this with water. So you can see there's quite a bit of blood in here. And so I'm just actually going to give it a rinse. I'm not going to heat it up. You could heat it up and kind of get some more of that out there, but it doesn't matter too much. I'm just going to give it a little rinse and then put clean water. Okay, we've got our bones back now in the water. Now, the reason we're actually making our own bone broth is not just because it tastes amazing. It really has such a different flavor than just the stock that you can buy from the supermarket. But bone broth actually is such a rich source of amino acids, minerals and protein, and particularly glutamine. And glutamine helps strengthen the gut wall, it lowers inflammation, and it actually fuels the cells that maintain the intestinal barrier. So I do recommend you do this, and it is basically as simple as putting the bones in, giving them a wash, and filling the water just above the bone level. And if that's all you do, that's enough. And then you slow cook it for 3 to 4 hours. And the other additional items are basically just to add flavor. So the one thing I will suggest with this is we want to add some iodized salt. And the reason is because we talked about iodine being, it's actually part of the component of the hormones. So I want to add a bit of salt to this. This is going to be quite a lot. So this might seem like a lot of salt, but it's kind of like a small, maybe a teaspoon to a tablespoon, depending on how much fish sauce you put in. Now, fish sauce is more for this recipe, and one of the reasons I've included it, it's salty. It's made of anchovies. But the reason I've included it in this particular recipe is because the fish sauce has vitamin A, vitamin D, iron, and zinc. And it also gives like such an umami flavor to it, which is kind of like it's like a savory Moorish flavor, kind of like salty cheese. Now I'll put, depending on how much this is, about, there's quite a little bit, we'll say about 1/4 of a cup. You can add more, go under, just because you can add salt, but you can't take it out. So I've added that in at the beginning. And then in order to counterbalance the salt, and you don't have to do this, but do know that Asian food does have a lot of sugar. I tend to put a bit of sugar in, and this is probably enough for sort of 8 servings. So it's so minimal sugar, it looks like a lot. And I probably will put half that, so I'll put about a teaspoon of sugar. It just balances out the salt. Now, I'm going to add this, so apple cider vinegar, just a little bit, about a teaspoon. But essentially, you just put a little bit in to help extract the minerals from the bone. Now, you don't have to add this stuff, but I love to add sort of an onion for flavoring. These are sort of the leftovers of carrots that I had. And then because carrot has a lot of vitamin A, and we already know vitamin A helps with the transportation of thyroid hormones around the body. So I'm going to add more carrot later, but I'll add carrot to this now also just to help extract some of that. And I had celery, so I'm going to add celery. But that's sort of the typical French style. So there's a bit of a blend between Asian and French. You don't have to add these parts, but what they do is they just add more nutrients to this broth as well as flavor. And if you're going to go organic, I would try to get organic celery and organic carrot just because they're thin skinned, whereas onion, I don't tend to go for organic unless I can afford it at the time where I find it. Now, aromatics, again, this is an Asian inspired soup. So you can put in cinnamon, star anise, fennel, coriander seeds, ginger. So I've got some ginger here, and ginger is really, really beautiful. You don't have to add it, but again, it's really, really nice. So we're going to add that, and I'm going to add some fennel and some coriander seeds here. You can dry roast it first if you want, and it intensifies the flavor, especially if you've got old spices. But like I said, I'm just doing things really quick today, so I'm just going to add that in. And cardamom. I don't know if you can see this cardamom pod. Oh, it is just so gorgeous, and you only need 1 or 2. But the important thing is that you actually break it open. So you need to make sure, maybe you can see this, that the seed is available. Otherwise, you won't really get the flavor. So I'm just going to put 2 of those, just broken it with my hand. And I'm going to add this piece of meat. Okay, so you can add, this is a chuck, so it's got lots of marbling, so it does need to be slow cooked in order to be tender. But what I will do is add this now, and it will add flavor to the broth. Ooh, might spill over, let's see. Go right to the top. It'll add flavor to the broth, but it'll also slow cook it. And when it's sort of fallen apart, because this will be ready before the bones are ready, then I'll take it out. Because if you cook it the whole 3 hours, it'll really become quite dry. So I'll probably cook it for about an hour. If you don't want to do that, like I said before, just get a nicer cut, like a sirloin, less marbling. And you can actually just thinly slice it and add it to the soup at the very end. So or chicken or anything like that. This particular cut needs slow cooking. So I'm going to turn the heat on that. I'm going to turn the heat up on this and put a lid on it. And then we'll be back in about 3 hours. It's going to be a bit noisy. I'll turn it on after. In about 3 hours, and I'll show you what this broth looks. So that is step 1 and the main part of our soup. The rest of it's kind of just putting it together. See you soon. So you can see as it starts to boil, the scum comes to the top and it kind of clumps together. It makes it pretty easy to just pick up. You don't have to get every little bit, but of course that would just take forever. So just trying to get the bigger bits. It'll and look, if you don't do this, it's not going to kill you. It's just, it will create a nicer end product, and it just takes sort of about 5 minutes. And then what I'll do is I'll let this sit I'll cover it up. I put a lot of water in it actually because it's a small pot, but once it's got to a nice boil and I've taken most of the scum off, which will be probably just another couple of minutes, I'll put the lid back on, and in about an hour I'll check that meat, and I'll take the meat out, and then I'll let it cook for another few hours. If you have a pressure cooker, then you can also do that, and it'll take a quarter of the time. Okay guys, you can see it's on a pretty good simmer. It's been simmering for about an hour and a half. I'm gonna check the meat. I checked it before, it wasn't quite where I wanted it to be. So you can see it just falls apart. So I am gonna take that out onto my plate. It's fallen apart so much. My big piece has actually gone into little pieces. That's why I didn't actually cut it up, because I wanted it to be quite easy to scoop out. So that's all bone. I've added a few more carrots because I was just cooking something else. You can see there's a bit of meat here. This particular cut doesn't have a lot of meat on it, but sometimes you can get a lot of meat on these neck bones, and you can just take that off at the end or when it's cooked and put it to the side. Okay guys, I'm back. Obviously it's another day. I've got different clothes and different hair and different lipstick. But essentially what I do is boil this at night while I'm at home. And then how you know you've got a good bone broth, a proper bone broth, is when you put it in the fridge and it gets cool, it coagulates. And that means when you move it like this, the next morning it should be like jelly, essentially. And that means you've got so much good collagen in there and glutamine and all the good stuff. So that's how I know the stocks at the supermarket don't work, because they don't coagulate. So I've strained out my bones. I just did it in a colander and all the vegetables, and I've just got my plain beef stock here. So first thing I'm going to do is, and you can freeze this if you want, or you can continue with this soup. I'm going to try it because it's likely it'll need more salt. Oh, it's so good. It's really rich. It's very beefy. You can feel some of the aromatics come through. Now, I'm going to add a bit more salt just because I need it. I like quite a bit of salt. And just probably that, and the iodized salt is the way to go, especially it's this iodized sea salt, if you can find something like that. I'm going to add that. Now, this is the last few minutes. We're basically going to cook it for another 5 minutes and then put it together. And so I'll put my carrots in, my freshly sliced carrots. I have got some bok choy, or pak choy, I think this one's called, but you can use anything you want. You could use broccoli, capsicum, you could use corn, pumpkin, any of the vegetables that you like. The reason I've used this is because it's sort of Asian inspired, but broccoli and pak choy and bok choy have really good vitamin A, and that's what we're wanting to do, is improve the nutrient content of this soup. And all I did is I cut the ends off, gave it a rinse and threw it in. So it's so quick, and it literally just cooks in minutes. Now, the last thing I've got is mushrooms. And I do recommend you use mushrooms as much as you can. This is exotic blend of mushrooms. So it's got oyster, shiitake, I think there's enoki down there, brown. And I've just basically cut them up, or I'll tear them up, and I'm going to put them in to my soup and cook them for 5 minutes. So put that in there. As you can see, my pot is full. And I'm also just going to put that meat that I cooked and shredded. I'm going to put that in. Now I'm going to bring this to boil and cook it for 5 minutes, and I'll see you back here. All right, I'm back. I've cooked this for about 10 minutes. It's everything's looking beautiful. I forgot to mention those mushrooms. They're like a nutrient powerhouse, yeah? They've got selenium, zinc, vitamin D, iron, and iodine. So they're all in one, and when it comes to thyroid health, they're such a good addition. And if your kids don't like them, like my son doesn't, I chop them up real thin and hide them in there. So what we're going to do, that's cooked, it's ready, and we're going to serve. Now you can serve it on rice noodles traditionally, that's how it goes. But we're going to do this more in the gut healthy thyroid way. So I've got these bean thread noodles. You can see it there. The label basically says it's made of mung bean. So it's got high levels of inositol and even iron. And they're so easy. All you do is put them in boiling water for a little while, and they turn out like this. It's hard to see my white bowl, but once they're a bit soft and squishy, they taste very similar to rice noodles, They're also called glass noodles, but they're really, kids love them, everybody loves them, but they're actually made of bean. So when you can, swap it out for these mung bean glass noodles. So I'm going to put that in the bowl. I'm going to get a nice, beautiful scoop of this broth. And the smell, it's winter where I live at the moment, and so it's really comforting to have such warming, vibrant flavors. Okay, so we've got a little bit of everything there. And now I'm going to add some extra protein. So I'm just going to add a little bit of an egg that's hard boiled. You don't have to do that, but I'm trying to get up the selenium and the zinc, and so they've got that in it. I'm going to add some spring onions. You don't have to, but it's just a really nice addition. That's a big one. I might take that one out. And I'm going to add some chili. One, I don't usually get to add chili, but because my son doesn't like it. But chili has these health properties in it that is actually, it helps to prevent chronic diseases like cancer and heart disease and type 2 diabetes. So I do add that when I can. I'm going to add some coriander for flavor. Okay. And then I'm going to add some, traditionally it's lime, but I don't have lime, so I'm going to use lemon. The vitamin C in lime and lemon is, you don't want to squeeze the whole thing, maybe like a quarter of that half. It helps the uptake of the iron. And that's what we're trying to do here. We're really trying to get a lot more iron into our diet. And so that helps the absorption of iron. And lucky last is it's very optional, and it's been sitting on the side here, so it's a bit sad, but it's seaweed. And normally it's a bit more perky than that. This is a nori sheet, but I'm adding that nori sheet so it adds more iodine. So there we go. We've got a beef pho for the thyroid and for the gut. You can have a look at it here. And I hope you try it at home. And thank you very much for watching. I'm going to try it now because I've been waiting so long since yesterday to try this. And let's just see. It's so good. It's really rich, very comforting. It's got that Asian flavor. And I do recommend you try this at home and certainly learn to make bone broth for your family's health. It's very expensive to buy, but it is cheap and easy to make yourself. And if you, as usual, if you have any more comments or suggestions, please drop down something below. Like my page, subscribe to my page so I can give you more of the same kind of content. Thank you.